It's the new moon in Gemini on May 30th. Mars and Jupiter are conjunct in Aries, bringing you lots of enthusiasm and excitement about your biggest goals. But at the same time, Mercury's retrograde and making a square to Saturn, and this can bring up obstacles. So how do you transform this energy? That's what we're going to talk about. Hi everyone, I'm Donna Stellhorn, your practical astrologer, here to talk to you today about the new moon. It's on May 30th. It's at 9 degrees of Gemini. We're going to do a short overview and then we're going to go sign by sign. So this is the new moon in Gemini, and this is us wanting to break free. We want to get out of the house. We want to have the sunshine in our face, the wind in our face. We want to breathe some fresh air. There is this desire to see something new, to meet new people, go to new places, even if it's just the next town, even if it's just walking through a neighborhood that you haven't walked through before. Now, Mercury is retrograde in late degrees of Taurus, and it's making a square to Saturn. And so while we want to do these new things, that Mercury, which rules this new moon, is pulling us back towards the past. It is saying, what is happening that is like the past, or how is the past blocking us from moving forward? Now, this can cause you to be looking at the future through this kind of lens that says everything that has happened is going to happen before, and it's going to happen the exact same way. And this is, of course, not true. But it can give you this idea that the future is not bright because you are thinking of, and you're being told that difficult things have happened in the past, and these are repeating. But what the media sometimes forgets is also amazing things have happened in the past. Breakthroughs, opportunities, innovations, and connections with others. And so even as you look through your past, there are some bright spots, and those can come forward too. So while the media is telling you that, there's inflation, and we've had inflation in the past, that there's a potential recession, and we've had recessions in the past, and everything seems so dark and grim, it's very possible that you yourself have lived through these events before and have found ways to prosper. And also, but it's also possible that if you haven't, if this is your very first time doing inflation or recession, then you do know people who have been through those, and they can tell you that they do survive. So some of this energy, you can stay in the past and be pessimistic and say, dark things are coming, or you can say there's always opportunities. And with that Saturn Mercury square, the opportunities are the ability to focus and concentrate, to determine what opportunities are there and to apply your energy to it. This is a great aspect for planning, for strategizing, for finding a way through. So one of the things to think about is, if you are, being pulled into the past by what the media is saying, is to go back in time, even maybe just 3 years, and think about how much you have grown in that space. How much have you changed and adapted? What have you learned? What are you better at? And then think forward 3 years and imagine where you could go if you're going to change that much. And then to the rescue comes Jupiter conjunct Mars in Aries. And this is fantastic energy. This combines the energy of luck with action. And so for the next 2 weeks, it's really wise to throw yourself into the biggest goal that you have and see how much you can get done. Because when we combine all of this together, that Saturn square Mercury along with the Jupiter conjunct Mars, you have a powerhouse of energy that you can use, because it brings both courage and focus. It brings that action plus attention to detail. So what a great combination that you want to use this time. So the bottom line is, over the next 2 weeks, the more action you take, the more luck you're going to have. And this is action that should be based on a plan you have. So if you're feeling uncertain about things, it just means it's time to sit down, pen and paper, or if you're more if you're younger than I am, then with your keyboard or your phone and outline a plan. Now, of course, Mercury is retrograde until June 3rd, so always give yourself a little extra time if you're communicating with others, if you're trying to get email responses, if you're trying to get someone to respond by text, if you are doing some sort of contract, give yourself extra time because everybody else is also, juggling a lot of things, and so there can be some delays. Also, because Mercury is retrograde, it's best to do more of the planning in this stage during especially the first couple of days until we get past this retrograde period, and then go ahead and start the new job or start the new project or launch something. So, because if you launch something during Mercury retrograde, you may have to go back in and do a relaunch. That's not so fun. And finally, the thing I wanted to mention about this chart is there's a lot of out of sign aspects that you're going to be feeling over the next 2 weeks. And so an out of sign aspect means that one planet is quite late in the sign and the other planet is quite early in the sign. And so they are communicating with each other, but not in the typical way. So think about this as kind of like fraternal twins. Like there's something in common, but there are also differences. And so what's necessary is when you're looking at opportunities, when you're looking for that open door, it's not always going to be what you're expecting. So the best strategy to have in this situation is to ask yourself, what am I not seeing? Or what's another solution? Allow your brain to work on the problem while you are waiting for the opportunity to arrive. And then just to let you know, because I get asked a lot in the comments, we are doing tropical Western astrology. And so it's good to listen to your ascendant sign, which is also called your rising sign, as well as your sun sign. So your sun sign is going to give you a little bit more of what you should be working on, whereas your ascending sign will tell you more of what's going to be happening to you. I also wanted to let you know that I do readings, I write books, I write columns for astrology.com, horoscope.com, and Conscious Community Magazine, and I have a few courses out. One of them is Finding the Hidden Money in Your Chart, and so I hope you'll check that out. There's a link in the description. I also have some new courses coming out on astrology as well as tarot. Okay, let's go sign by sign. Okay, Aries, you guys are doing this new moon in your area of communication, siblings, neighbors, short distance travel, as well as agreements and contracts. And so there is a lot of communication stuff going on. And of course, Mercury is retrograde. And so that can make it a rather challenging because you're wanting to move forward on some sort of communication process, but Mercury is causing some delays. And I should be very specific to say it's that Mercury square Saturn causing the delays. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to move forward because that's where the energy is. So you should set your intention as doing something to move forward and then allow a few days to go by until Mercury can go direct, and then things could move forward at a better speed. Now, where that Mercury square Saturn is causing you some problems is it can give you the idea that you don't have a good plan for this future, or that even if you have a good plan, you don't have the money or resources to move forward on it. And this is where you need to challenge that idea and look at your plan and say, all right, how can I do this without the resources? Or if you don't feel it's a good plan, who can you talk to get a better plan? But your power pair, which is Jupiter and Mars, are actually in your sign of Aries, which gives you a real ability to have not just the enthusiasm to move forward, but the energy to do so. But having all of this ability to move forward, and it shows that you would really like to move forward now, like no more waiting, everybody get out of your way, you want to move forward. But the problem is if you don't have a plan, then you are just throwing darts at a wall rather than an actual dart board. So this is where you've got to step back for a moment and make sure that you have a plan, even if it's only that you know the big, gigantic goal out there and you know one or two of the next steps. You don't have to have the entire plan outlined. The universe is going to throw different opportunities to you along the way to your big goal. So that means that you do need to be flexible, which you're good at. but it does say that you need to know where the ultimate goal is, and then 1 or 2 steps to get you started. And that way, that Mars and Jupiter conjunction can just carry you forward. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically love relationships, the sun is making a sextile to Mars, and so you have some big opportunities in this area. You could meet someone new, and this is all around communication with this person, or putting yourself out there where you can be seen, and that might be going to social events or just being out in the world. Now, a sextile does say that you have to do something, you have to take some sort of action, and then the good stuff comes. So that means that if you are thinking about going out with somebody, that you have to initiate through maybe a text, a call, or something like that. And then again, remember that while Mercury is retrograde for a few more days, that there could be some delays at first, and that maybe this will happen towards the end of the 2-week period. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Venus is making a semi-sextile to Mars, so it's like stuff's okay, but it's better if you're working on the smaller stuff together. Trying to do the bigger goals, you may not find that you're on the same page. You know, maybe you're wanting to buy a house, but they want to move and live outside the country. You know, like those bigger goals may not be in alignment, but the smaller goal of how can we save money right now, that might be very much in line for both, for each of those goals. And then as you move forward on your goals and you get a different aspect, you'll be able to find a way to marry those 2 goals together. So that was a long and very specific example. So I hope that's clear. You're doing the semi-sextile. It means that focus on the small stuff right now. The bigger stuff, it's not so good to work on right now because there's going to be quite a few differences. When it comes to home and family, the moon is making a sextile to Mars, so you have an opportunity to get some big stuff done at home, and that is maybe you're doing some sort of renovations. This would be more in like the yard rather than inside the house, or maybe you're pulling people together for some sort of celebration, family reunion, like a group portrait or something like that. So again, because it's a sextile, you have to initiate the energy, but then it can go very well. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from Venus, which is now in Taurus, in your house of money. Additionally, Mercury retrograde is back in your money house. And so you have quite a lot of energy going on in your house of money. Now, Venus in your house of money, and it's also your house of comfort and possessions, can make you want to shop. And so it's possible you're going back to try to buy something that you missed before. But with the retrograde Mercury, do make sure that you can return it if it doesn't actually come out to be exactly what you were looking for. Now, also though, this is good energy for focusing on money through maybe money meditations, or to look at finances in general and find a system that you like for keeping track of your money. Because as you put your attention on something, it expands. And so by paying attention to your money, and specifically the money that is coming in, that expands. So overall, though, we see multiple opportunities for you to make more money over the next 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your own business, Venus is making an out-of-sign square to Pluto. Now, this means some action is needed, but it's not the most obvious action. So that's possible that you need to go into your accounts and kind of dig through to see what kind of fees you're being charged, or to see if some sort of balloon payment is coming up on a loan, or if there's a lower interest rate offer, but you have to dig for it a little bit. The same thing on your business. There is some opportunity to gain something, but it's not maybe the most obvious of customers, or maybe it's somehow shifting your marketing for a different target audience. So there is some sort of change you need to make. So ask yourself, if you don't see the solution, what are possible solutions that you're not seeing? Now, when it comes to money derived from career, Venus is not making an aspect to Uranus, and Saturn is still there. Pluto's right outside. So this shows to be not a good time to be asking for a raise. You're just going to get saddled with extra responsibilities, or they may ask you to do a project that you're not interested in doing. So if you are thinking that you want to raise, just cool your heels during this 2-week period. This is not a good time to be asking. Okay, and when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, or they are highly speculative or highly leveraged, Venus is making a semi-sextile with the Sun, and this means that it's time to get into the details of it, to look at it from a very granular level of how do I take the very practical steps to get from point A to point B. So this is not so much about thinking about the big concept or where you're going to be in 10 years. This is more about what you can do today. It's generally not tasks that you like. They might be slightly outside your comfort zone or just painful to do. You just don't enjoy doing them. So, but there's something important if you, because if you do them, you will make more money than usual. So that's the key. If you don't like this aspect, I totally understand, and you'll just want to wait outside this 2-week period for a better aspect. Okay, Taurus, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of money. It's also your house of possessions and a sense of worthiness. And so this is where the new beginning is happening. So it's possible you're getting a new source of money that is coming in, some new opportunities to get money from different sources. Also, you may be getting some new possessions. And I think most importantly, it is a time to look at your sense of worthiness. And if you are not feeling worthy, then either to take steps on shifting your thinking or to find actions you can do that in your mind give you that sense. Now, I do believe that we are all worthy of abundance, but sometimes people feel that they need to do something to have that worthiness bestowed upon them. I don't think this is necessarily the best way to go, but if it is a mental block, like if you're feeling that if you do A, B, and C, then you are worthy, then do A, B, and C and, get that process going. So, but if you can find a way to just recognize that you are worthy because you're here, you're a soul, you're in this universe, so you are deserving of abundance, then embrace that concept. Now, where that Saturn square Mercury is creating an obstacle is you may be feeling like that you are not deserving or not worthy because you don't have the title or the credentials or the experience, or you don't have the specific job that you were thinking of. And so this is where you may feel there's a block. And sometimes people are feeling like they need credentials in a situation so that other people don't question them. Yes, it's true, there are some professions that absolutely require credentials, such as medical professions, but there are also professions out there where the credentials are something that is not required, and what's really required is expertise, abilities, experience. And so those are the types of things, like experience and learning your craft are things that you can do on your own, in your spare time or through some formal program. Now, where the powerhouse pair are, that Jupiter conjunct Mars in Aries is sitting in your house of spirituality, which means you're co-creating with the universe. So talk about credentials. You are being guided and you are guiding the energies of the universe. And that is as you move forward. If the door is open, go through it. If it's locked, go to another door. That is co-creating. It is also when you ask the universe for opportunities, and they will bring the opportunities in some sort of form that will come with a lesson attached. And if you embrace that lesson, then the universe will send you more and more opportunities. So this is where you have that powerhouse pair that can help you move forward towards your biggest goals. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, Mercury is making an out of sign semi-sextile to Venus. Yeah, that was a mouthful. So what that means is the person that you could meet is not necessarily your type. They're not necessarily in a place you usually go. They're not necessarily on a platform you usually frequent. So you have to do something a little bit different to meet this person. So yes, there are easier aspects that are coming up for you. So, but if you are very interested in meeting somebody new, you have to break out of your routine. You have to do something different, and then the universe can put you together with this person. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Venus is making an out-of-sign square to Pluto, and so this means that there is some sort of contention going on between the two of you, but it's not so obvious. And that is, you might accidentally push one of your partner's buttons and get a surprising reaction out of this person, or they may push one of your buttons and you're surprised at how you are reacting emotionally. But it's your opportunity to kind of disentangle or disconnect's a better word, that button, and to find out why you are reacting emotionally, why they're reacting emotionally, and see if you can, through looking at it, under a little microscope, to figure out why that happened. So this is an opportunity to grow this relationship, but it does mean that you guys could be bumping heads over the next 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to home and family, the sun is making a semi-sextile to Venus, not out of sign this time, so this one's going to be obvious. There's a lot of stuff to do at home, and these are the little things. So this is like, doing some garden maintenance, maybe you're doing something small like touching up some paint, or doing some extra decluttering, but it's not like the super intense thing. It's just like spending 15 minutes a day on something just to improve things. And the same with the relations with the people you live with. It's just spending a little extra time, stopping and saying, hi, how are you? Of course, with the semi-sextile, it's never at a convenient time, so you have to kind of squeeze it in because you're all quite busy. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Mercury, which is now back in your sign, in your house of confidence. And so this is saying that money sources for you are directly based on how confident you feel. Now, confidence comes from practice and trust in your own abilities. And so even if you don't know what you're doing in a situation, if you've known what you were doing in situations in the past, you can pull that energy forward and apply it to this new situation. This also says that it's up to you, and you want to put your name on things, that you want to say, I've done this, and that's the thing that brings you more opportunities and money. Instead of saying, I'm going to push myself into the background and let the thing itself shine. This is not time for that. This is time for you to stand there with whatever it is you've produced and say, this is me, this is what I've done. That's what brings money opportunities. Now, because, of course, the new moon is there are definitely new money opportunities, yet that Mercury is still retrograde for the first few days. So look at past things first and go back over them. And then as Mercury goes direct, it'll still be in your sign for a little while. And so then you want to do brand new things. When it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, Mercury is making an out-of-sign sextile with Jupiter. And so that means that there are some great opportunities, but they're not so obvious. They're a little hard to see. And so maybe this is something where there's some derivative investment that you want to consider, or maybe this is looking at a different brokerage house or a different style of investing. This possibly could mean a business opportunity, but it is derived from something else you're doing. And so this would be kind of like a person maybe who specializes in social media would help somebody write a resume. And so it's not exactly what you do, but you have all of the skills to write the resume, so you would take on that job. So it is something that's just a little bit requires thinking outside the box, and then you can find the opportunity. When it comes to money derived from career, Mercury is making a sextile to Neptune, and so there is an opportunity. The sextile means you need to take the action. That means you need to initiate the meeting. So, and sometimes that can be difficult while Mercury is retrograde. So you want to wait towards the end of this 2-week period to get that meeting happening. You can try and schedule it at the beginning, but it's probably going to get bumped to the end anyway. But you do have an opportunity to make more money in your job than usual if you initiate some sort of action to make that happen. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. Mercury is making that square to Saturn. And so Mercury's retrograde, it's squaring Saturn. All of this adds up to stop what you're doing. Don't move forward. It is not time to launch. It's not time to sign. It is not time to move forward in any part of this opportunity. Just wait, allow the markets to settle down perhaps, or wait for the other party to make you a second offer. But even if this offer goes away, it's more like the universe is protecting you rather than blocking you from something that you want. Okay, Gemini, this is your new moon, and so this starts your new lunar year. And so the more new things you do over the next 30 days, the bigger the harvest and the more opportunities you're going to get over the course of the next 12 months. So right there, you don't have to do everything in the first 2 weeks, or especially during the first couple days when Mercury is retrograde. However, you do want to try lots of new things over the next 4 weeks so that you can plant seeds for a bigger harvest later. Now, where you're feeling that Mercury-Saturn square is in this area of self-doubt, maybe because you're feeling like you don't have a degree, or you don't have the knowledge, or that you just have this nagging feeling that you're not good enough, so that there's something that's holding you back. And of course, some of this can be remedied by you looking objectively at your past and seeing that you are quite good at many, many things. And so even though you may not have spent all of your time focused on one thing, which a Gemini is going to have trouble doing anyway, you can take all of the different puzzle pieces of, learning this and learning that, all these disparate all of these different things, then you put them together and it makes this mosaic of what you can do. So some of this is that you might be looking at someone who's spent 20 years doing one thing and saying, "Oh, I'm not there," and that's true. But this mosaic you have created could take you to a place that is just as exciting. So where your power pair are, the Jupiter and Mars is in your house of community and friendships. And so that's a place to start to look. If you're not sure of your abilities, ask your community, ask your friends to help you discover what you're great at and how you can expand so that you can try all these new things and set some big goals and go after them. So this is also that some friends or groups and organizations may come to you and they may have ideas of goals for you. And this is what you need to decide, is whether you want to do your goals and then partner with somebody to do their goals as well. Of course, being Gemini, it's good to do more than one thing, so you might. Now, when it comes to love relationships, specifically new love, Mercury is making an out-of-sign semi-sextile with Venus. And if that doesn't sound that great, it's because it can be a little bit of a challenge. So both the Venus and Mercury are in your 12th house, so it's hidden. And so this means that you're looking for somebody who's different than you have gone out with before, and they're not in a spot that you would think of going to. And so it's really a little bit challenging. Now, all of that said, you are still doing an aspect. So this is where you turn it over to the universe. And so you might write on a piece of paper what you're looking for, or that you want to meet someone. You might light a candle, red for passion or yellow for friendship. You might do a wish or a prayer, so you can do this and then you release it to the universe. And if the universe puts you together with someone, there you are. But then when you do that, recognize that the person's not necessarily going to look like you expect or sound like you expect, or there's going to be something that's different because that's why you didn't spot them, because it's an out of sign aspect. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, Mercury is making an out of sign sextile to Jupiter. Now, while this is a better aspect than that semi-sextile, it's still out of sign, which means that at some point you're a little out of step. Not so much that you're not coming together to talk about things or to work on something together, but the timing, not even that the timing's off, it's more that you're just, like you say, please hand me a hammer, and they hand you, like a Coca-Cola. Like it's just a little off, and so it may take some discussion, and with Mercury retrograde, that can be challenging until you get towards the end of this 2-week period. So I'm not seeing that you're arguing. It's more that you just feel like you're not quite lining up in step as you usually do. Now, when it comes to home and family, and this includes your dwelling, Mercury is making that square to Saturn, and Mercury is retrograde, so that square is tightening. So whatever you're thinking about with home and family, just stop and rethink it. It is not time to move forward if you're being blocked by something externally, like trying to buy a house or trying to rent something. This may not be the spot for you, or you want to wait so that you can get a better offer. So it's saying, don't move forward on this, just stop and allow something to settle, or allow the universe to tell you what's wrong before you move forward. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that new moon in your own sign, and so new money opportunities are probable. This means that because it's the new moon, that they could even extend past the 2-week period. So many money opportunities, it's hard to say, many new money opportunities are coming in. Now, it is very much connected to you. That means you have to take some sort of physical action to make it happen. That could be partnering with somebody, or you announcing to the world that you're doing it, or putting your products or services out online so people can see them. But as you do, you're going to find more and more opportunities. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, the moon is not making an aspect to Saturn. So these opportunities that are coming in are probably too new to bring you the profits in the 2-week period. So that is, you might find new things to invest in, but they're not going to be high enough. You're not going to have enough profits to cash in yet. Additionally, when it comes to what you're marketing or new products that you're putting out, you're not yet getting paid for them, or the checks in the mail or something, but you're making about the same as usual, but the bigger profits are going to come later when these two energies line up. Now, it's a different story when it comes to money derived from career, so that's like a paycheck, because the power pair, Jupiter and Mars, are in your house of money derived from career, plus the moon is making a sextile to Mars. And it's making a sextile to Jupiter. I forgot what I was doing there for a second, but thank goodness I found my way. So here it is. Moon's making a sextile to Mars. It is also happens to be making a sextile to Jupiter, which is helpful also. So if you'll take an action to move something forward, you could have some really extraordinary results. So this is, even though it's just a sextile, it's such a powerful sextile with that Jupiter there, that this is the time to ask for more money or higher commission rate or bigger territory or better clients or something, because it's quite likely that you will get more than you were asking for. And finally, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. The moon is making a semi-sextile to Venus. So there is some opportunities to make some money in this area, but there's something that is a little outside your comfort zone that you have to do to make it happen. And because the Venus is hidden in your 12th house, I think it is that you need to stop and meditate on this, maybe to send out some positive vibes about this, but also more importantly to listen to the universe, because maybe some small adjustments need to be made before you sign, or perhaps maybe some adjustments on your timing have to happen. So there there is some opportunities for making a little more than usual in this area, but you may, if you're doing something really big, like launching a book or an album or something, you may want to wait until this energy lines up better. Okay, Cancer, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of spirituality, psychic ability, as well as art and music. And so it's all of those things that help you feel more connected to the bigger universe. Now that Saturn square Mercury is causing you perhaps to feel like you're not good enough, that your work isn't good enough, that you don't have this ability to connect or to hear the music of the universe. And so this is where you may feel blocked, because this can cause you to feel like you can't do the work that you love to do. But part of the problem is that with this position, you feel like you need to be something for everyone. But in actuality, because of the Mercury square Saturn, you need to focus on those people who resonate with your message. So where that power pair is, that Jupiter-Mars is elevated in your chart, it's up in your area of career and vocation and your calling. And so this says that if you put the work out there, if you put out into the world your art, your spirituality, your intuitive ability, if you just step out into the world, you will find your fans, you'll find your base, you'll find your tribe. And with that, then everything else starts to happen. Now, this energy is quite good if you're looking for another job, because your resume can just rise to the top. But really, ask and check in with your higher self and, the universe itself, whether that is God or your ancestors or, your guides, whoever is helping you and co-creating with you, because they can open up some doors that you may not be able to open up with just your resume. Okay, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, the moon's not making an aspect to Pluto. And so that the focus that you have is elsewhere. Now, with your power pair elevated in your chart, you can attract a lot of attention, but you may not be seeing it as a potential love. So it's possible that one of your friends is going to point this out to you, but even then you may still feel a little reticent because you're working on something else. So if you're on the hunt for new love, you may find that you're not making a connection this time, and so you might just want to put it off for a couple of weeks. And when it comes to your established relationship, the moon's not making an aspect with Saturn. And so, again, there's a little bit of a disconnect going on. So it's possible that you're off doing whatever that it is that you want to do, and your partner is taking care of other things. And that's why it's great to be in a partnership, because there's two of you, so one can focus on, inner things or projects or things like that, while the other is maybe taking care of the kids or the house or the dog, etc. So, and that's kind of what we see going on right now, is that you are specializing in your duties, you've divided them up, and you're working on your individual things, but not necessarily coming together as much as we might see you usually do. Now, when it comes to home and family, the moon is making a semi-sextile to Venus. So there is some connection going on. It is about handling the small details. It's about, doing things that are maybe just slightly outside your comfort zone. And that is maybe you're doing some home repairs you don't normally do, or you are introducing yourself to the neighbors, or maybe your kids are bringing home somebody, and so you're introducing yourself to them. So because when you're Cancer or Cancer rising, you tend to like people you know more than people you don't know. So anytime you are in a situation where there's a lot of strangers, you can feel slightly uncomfortable. And so this is saying that, though, if you do that, then you get the benefits. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from the sun that is in that 12th house of spirituality. So this says it's time to look inward and start to co-create with the universe. And that is, what is it that you want? What is your plan to get there? And then maybe doing prayer, meditation, affirmations, maybe doing some feng shui to shift the energies more in alignment. It's often true that if you visualize how a meeting's going to go, how an interview is going to go, if you visualize ahead of time, you get much better results than you just walking in cold. And so it's the same thing too. You can do all the advertising in the world, but you also want to spiritually go out into the world and reach people on the Akashic fields or on that spiritual plane of existence. And so when you do, you're touching souls that have a connection with you, and so it's more likely they are going to come to you for whatever products or services you're offering. Now, when it comes to your money, from traditional investments and from your own business, I had to think for a second. So the sun is just slightly out of orb of that Uranus. It would have been a semi-sextile, so it wasn't a very strong aspect anyway. So there's much more of an energy right now of working behind the scenes on your business, not so much focused on going and finding people. So the kind of the theme that you're doing is to work from the spiritual side, or in the case of business, maybe working on your website, building your shopping cart, finding how you can build up your infrastructure, and then things go better. Same thing with your investments. Maybe you are reading the prospectus or doing some research, looking into your decision-making process, things like that, which are going to help you much more later. But for this 2-week period, you're making about the same as usual. Now, when it comes to money from your career, it's a different story because the sun is making a semi-sextile to that Venus. Again, it's on the wide side. It was just like there by a smidge. And so that can mean that it's hard to get with your boss to discuss a raise, or that they say yes to it, but it's a little less than you were hoping for, or maybe it has a couple of strings attached. So you may want to wait until this aspect lines up in a more favorable sense, but it is there, so it's quite possible you'll make a little bit more than usual over the next 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they are highly leveraged or they are time sensitive. The sun's not making an aspect to Pluto, however, it is making a sextile to the co-ruler Mars. So there is something happening here. There is a potential of something happening, but it is a little bit remote. Now, the interesting part of all of this is because the Mars is elevated, and with that Jupiter, that does strengthen it. It is in your house of career. So what I'm thinking is that there may be a risk-based opportunity with a startup or some other venture with someone where maybe it's your own business, and so but you're committing a lot of time and energy to this, and so that's where the risk comes in. And it does say to take some action, that there are some possibilities, but because that sun is in the 12th house, make sure that this is more about finishing up something, because next month you're going to get that new moon in your, well, not in your first house. Well, technically, yes, in your first house. And so what that means is you'll be starting a new lunar cycle of 1 year. And so this is like the balsamic period, like the very, very end period. So this is more about cleaning up something, finishing up something, finding where you can take the last little bits of profit from some sort of risky venture that you've done. Or if this is that you have been wanting to launch your album or your novel or something like that, this is try to get it out in the next 2 weeks, because you're at the closing cycle of this lunar cycle. Okay, Leo, you guys are doing this new moon in your area of friendships, community, as well as the future. And there's a little bit of technology going on here too. And so new beginnings can happen in all of these areas. Now, where that Saturn is squaring Mars and how it's affecting you is that while you're doing a new moon in this area of friendships and communities, you are overly sensitive, maybe not overly, but you're hypersensitive right now about the opinions of others. And so you may be trying to do things to please others or to get into somebody's good graces, whereas it would be better to find more of a balance in that area rather than trying to find what pleases others to maybe expand your idea of how that relationship could be. Now, this also could mean that there is some sort of fear of rejection that is holding you back in some area. And this could be a fear of rejection from long ago, something that's a little bit dormant inside of you, so that on the surface you say, no, I don't fear rejection, I am impervious to that, but that there's just something. And so what happens is, instead of noticing that you're afraid of it, you turn away from it and turn away from the opportunity. And so doing a little rejection therapy can be quite helpful. There was a guy who did a TED Talk on this. I'll leave a description. I'll leave a link in the description. Now, your power pair of Jupiter and Mars are in your house of knowledge and education, and this gives you the ability to research any information that you need to find out what it is you need to know about that person or the situation or how to do something. And so this is, even if somebody comes to you and says you don't know what you're doing, you can find out. You can find whatever information that you need. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically love relationships, the Sun is making a sextile to Jupiter. And so there is quite an opportunity this time to meet somebody new. This is especially true if you take an action to initiate the process. That is, if you go out and wink at somebody or send them an email or just go out and be social and smile and say hi, you are more likely to meet someone during this period. Now, this sextile says that if you're initiating the action, that something happens. So if you're just sitting at home, it's not likely that something's going to come of this, and you'll miss this positive energy. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, it is a different story because the Sun is not making an aspect to Uranus. It's interesting because they were close, but they were too wide. And so that does say there's some sort of maybe communication that's not happening. Maybe you're holding back or they're holding back, and some bit of information that would have been helpful is just not said or not heard or not understood. And so this energy will come together in the future, but right now you just look like two ships sailing along, going off in your different directions and not really coming together as a unified force. This doesn't mean anything so much negative for the relationship, but more that you're both working on your own things and not really coming together with the communication that would be necessary to strengthen the relationship. So I think the relationship's kind of going along as usual. Now, when it comes to home and family, it's a rather similar story because the Sun's not making an aspect with Pluto. And because almost all the planets are elevated in your chart, it means that you're more out in the world than at home. So you might not be home long enough to see anybody, or even if you are home, nobody else seems to be. So there is, again, this idea that, you're two ships, you're going off in different directions, you're not really seeing and communicating with each other because you're more focused on the outer world, the bigger world, than you are with the familiar. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Mercury, which is retrograde, and moving to square Saturn. So right off the bat, this says that there is something that you're doing that you need to stop doing because you are going to hit a block. And that is, maybe you are doing some indiscriminate spending, but maybe you're thinking about getting into some sort of business partnership with someone and investing some money, or maybe giving money in a love relationship situation, but you don't know that person that well, or there's not a commitment between the two of you. So this energy says stop, rethink this because it's Mercury retrograde, and allow yourself to more conserve money rather than put it out. So wherever you were thinking about putting money out right now, stop. And then on the other side, focus on how you can bring in more money through partnerships, through your career. Look at where you're putting your money to work for you now. Are these good investments? Do they feel sound? Are you diversified, etc.? So looking at your money with this idea that you are good with money, and if you're not now, you can be, especially with that power pair up in your house of knowledge. So it's time to get the information that you need so that you can preserve what you have, make more money with the money you have, and not let it go without some sort of guarantee that you're going to get some sort of return. Now, when it comes to income from business or from traditional investments, Mercury is making a sextile to Neptune. So there is a real opportunity there for you to make more money than usual. And that is that you need to take some sort of action, maybe to spread the word about your business, maybe to launch some sort of marketing campaign, which, by the way, you would want to do after June 3rd, after Mercury goes direct. But Neptune's in a money house and that Mercury's in your career house. So it looks very strong for you making more money than usual from investments or your own business. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, like your paycheck, the energy is also quite strong because that's where the new moon is. So that says there is a new opportunity at work. That's possible that you might be transferring into a different department or getting a promotion and a raise comes along with that. Or maybe you are shifting your hours around, you're getting a shift differential, or you're getting a better territory to sell in. That Mercury is retrograde. So this might be something that people were talking about before, but it hadn't happened, and now it's starting to go through. Of course, the retrograde Mercury will delay this for a few days. You may not even get to see this towards the end of this 2-week period, but if you want to go talk to your boss anytime during this 2-week period, that is a good idea because you have good energy for getting more money from working for somebody else. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. Mercury is making an out of sign sextile with Jupiter. This means that there is an opportunity, but there's something that is not so clear about it, not so obvious about it. And so this is perhaps that you are thinking about some sort of investment, but a derivative of that investment would be better. And so, for example, like if you were thinking about buying gold coins, a derivative of that might be a mutual fund that deals in gold. Or, vice versa. Maybe you were thinking about doing an ETF that does leveraged gold, but instead you decide to go buy and hold gold coins. So it is looking at what was not exactly on your mind, looking at what might be similar and taking a slightly different path. Now, it is a sextile. That means you have to initiate this action. It doesn't just come to you. And so you need to explore this yourself. And I guess I want to give you an example, too, of if this was one of those longer, high speculative, risky investments, like launching your album or something like that. So that the derivative of that might be that you put your music to somebody's movie, and so therefore your music is being promoted that way. Or that you don't release the album, but you release just singles. That would also be a derivative of it. The same thing if you were thinking about launching your novel, maybe you would do a short story first. So looking at something where it's a little bit different than what you were expecting and then initiating the action could bring success. Okay, Virgo, you guys are doing this new moon right at the top of your chart, making you very noticeable, especially when doing new things. And so this is a time where we do see something that is shifting or changing, possibly related to your career, vocation, or how you're putting yourself out into the world. Now, where we're seeing that Mercury-Saturn cause a problem is that you may be asking yourself whether you have the knowledge or the energy to get this new project going. And so it's possible that you're thinking you want a new job, but you don't know if you have the energy or the knowledge to figure out how to update your resume and how to get it uploaded to their site, and should you do a cover letter, and do you have the energy to go through the interview process, etc. And so this is where the block is. Now, where that power pair, Jupiter and Mars, are sitting is in your house of resources, which means that you can find somebody to help you with a resume, to find someone to help you do the upload, or, to advise you on a cover letter, etc. And I'm just using career as an example. This is for any new things in your life. If you are buying a house or getting into a relationship, you have resources around you, people that you know, and other, there's Google. So you have unlimited knowledge and information and connections to help you out. But right now it's being guided by the universe so you can find the right person to help you. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, that is that Mercury square Saturn. And so it says that you need to stop what you're doing. This is not the right direction to be going in, and look for a new avenue for seeking someone. So let's say you're on a particular platform for finding love. This would say stop using that and maybe go meet people in person, or maybe go to a singles mixer, or ask your friends to fix you up, or seek out a matchmaker. So anything that you're doing right now, it says stop, do something different, because Mercury's retrograde. It says redo something, and Saturn says stop. And so therefore it says you're heading in the wrong direction. You're just maybe going to meet someone just like the person you broke up with, or you're not going to get the good results that you're looking for. So go look for another avenue to find love. Now, when it comes to existing relationships, the story is quite different, because Mercury is making a lovely sextile to Neptune. So there is opportunities to come together and to really know each other's thoughts, like to deepen the relationship, because you are having better communication, because you're having more understanding with each other. Now, because Mercury is retrograde, this means you're going over stuff you've done before. And so this might be, if they're looking for any residual resentment that there has been for past arguments, or maybe even something that happened before the two of you got together. Maybe it's a little bit of PTSD from a past relationship. And so this is where you get to clear that out and bring the two of you closer together. This is a sextile. It says you need to initiate the action to make this happen. Now, when it comes to home and family, Mercury is making an out of sign sextile with Jupiter. I had to think for a second. So, and what that means is that the family can come together, but it's not going to be as direct or as obvious as you might think. So this is maybe looking at something different you can do as a family. And so it's interesting, because there's a lot of planets in the house of photography. And so maybe you would want to get together for a family portrait, or maybe to take a photography class as a family, where you go out into nature and you learn about aperture and all the other photography things. And that's just an example. It's like, what can you do as a family that's different, that's a little out of the box, and that is going to help bring you closer together. So because this is an out of sign sextile, it is quite easy for you just to skip this aspect entirely, so that that family is just moving along just as usual, not really making any sort of differences or changes. It's just, you're just humming along as usual. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Venus that's in your house of education. We haven't talked a lot about Venus in the intro, because Venus is not very active in this chart. And so this is more about you learning about what you need to do to make more money. So you may be taking courses on money. And by the way, I'll mention right here, I do have a video course on finding the hidden money in your chart, where I talk about, using your own chart to find where you have aspects and what to do, to help you accumulate more money in your life. So, but to go back to what's going on here, the Venus is only making a little semi-sextile to the Jupiter. So that means that you can get some help in making more money, but you feel slightly uncomfortable, and maybe the person's really busy. Maybe you're not sure what questions to ask. And so a lot of this is around doing some research and finding out the questions. Remember, we always say here, it's the quality of the questions that brings the good answers. And so the author, Tim Ferriss, he did a really interesting PDF on asking good questions. And so I'll link that in the description. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, the house is great. It has Jupiter and Mars there, so that's massive opportunities. But interestingly enough, the Venus is only making a semi-sextile to the Mars, and so it means that the thing that's in the way of this is those little nitpicking things of calling the person back, making sure you log their phone number or their email. Just finding their email seems to be hard, because maybe their name is similar to other clients you have, or there's a misspelling or something that causes you to lose their file. So it's doing those little things that really helps you make some big money. So what you need to think of is if you sit down and get those little itsy bitsy things done, you can make more money than usual over the next 2 weeks. And by the way, you are Virgo or Virgo rising, so you are supposed to be learning in this lifetime how to deal with all those little details. You know, it's like the little grains of sand make up the beach. And so this is something that is in line with your life path, learning how to do it, like how to keep organized when you have 1,000 little pieces of paper on your desk, or how to stay organized when you have hundreds of clients coming in, or when you have a very diversified portfolio. You know, that's there's only really one big downside to having a diversified portfolio, and that's the amount of paperwork and things to keep track of. So finding a system that you can use really helps in this case. Now, when it comes to money from your career, which would mean a paycheck, Venus is making a semi-sextile to the moon. And so again, we're in this sort of uncomfortable, growth type of time. What I would say is that it's not so beneficial to ask on a minor aspect. Like if you're going to go in and make a big pitch for a raise, then to do so on a minor aspect seems like a waste because you get less than you were expecting. However, this energy is quite good for getting some smaller perks, and that would be maybe a discount on insurance, a discount on company stock, or maybe finding that, you can up your 401k because there's a match or something like that. So look for a smaller win when it comes to your business and then take action to make that happen. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. Venus is making an out of sign sextile with Saturn. And so all of that means is that the energy is there to make more money by you taking action, but it is not exactly in line with what you're expecting. So you have to think outside of the box. You have to think of, when you're presented with the opportunity, what are the other ways you could make money with it? So, and we see that kind of example on YouTube all the time because we see that, of course, people are wanting to make YouTube videos and they want to promote their businesses or services, but some of the most profitable channels are about how to make the YouTube video to promote your business. So that would be a derivative of that process. And so looking at how to make money maybe from the system it is, or maybe make money from a different way would be highlighted by an out of sign sextile. Okay, Libra, you guys are doing this new moon in your area of education, knowledge, travel, legal matters, as well as faith. And so this is where the attention is. Something new is happening in this area, and it could be around education where you are picking up some new information, taking a class or something like that. Maybe you're going on a trip. Perhaps you are entering into a legal matter, which be careful because Mercury is retrograde at this time and will be till June 3rd. And so try to draw things out until after Mercury goes direct. But it's also in the area of faith or belief. And so this is, I think, where we're seeing that connection to that Saturn Mercury square, where it's like you're wanting to maybe do your art or do your own business or take some sort of personal or professional risk, but you're uncertain whether you're going to receive something in return for that. So like, will people pay for your art? Will the person that you love say yes? And so that's where the block is, that hesitation saying, am I good enough? And of course, beyond the usual, which is, trying to do the best you possibly can at all times, in a relationship where you're giving more than, like you're giving 110% to the relationship, in your art, where you're practicing, where you're honing your skills. But the power pair of Jupiter, Mars is in your house of relationships. And so that says friends and close family members, potential business partners, potential love relationships. All of these people are lining up to say, yes, you can do it. Now, of course, That doesn't necessarily mean it's the exact person that you want. I mean, maybe it is that you want your mother to say, oh my gosh, you're amazing. And yet you have the rest of the world who is chiming in saying that, but you're not getting it from that one person. And so that is to be aware of that, how we can fixate on one person and think that we need to get the validation from that person, whereas we're actually getting the validation from many, many people. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, Venus is not making an aspect with Uranus. However, you do have that power pair, Jupiter and Mars, in your house of relationships. So it's more likely, especially with Mercury retrograde, that you are connecting with someone that you've known before. So that might be that it's new in the sense that you were just friends before or acquaintances, and now something is heating up. But what is more likely is it's an old relationship coming again, and while you might like to think that it's new, it is actually not that new because the energy hasn't shifted that much. The energy is more about looking backwards than looking forward. Now, when it comes to existing relationships, Venus is making a semi-sextile to that Mars. Now, you have Mars and Jupiter, that power pair, in that house of relationships. So that says that things are happening between the two of you. There are connections happening, but a semi-sextile says that growth happens through those small little details. And it's I've given that idea of the rock in your shoe sort of analogy about this, that you're on a hike and there's a little pebble in your shoe and it's not interrupting the hike, but it's there. And so it is when you are actually addressing the rock in the shoe is where the growth happens. If you stop early and say, okay, I'm going to hunt for this, I'm going to figure this part out, and then you can calmly sit down and say, okay, let's find this. But if you go on and on and on, the little rock creates the blister, and then finally you tear your shoe off and you're angry and you're throwing the shoe down and the hike is ruined. So the semi-sextile is something where it's something small, but you want to take care of it pretty quickly, and then things get much, much better. Now, when it comes to home and family, Venus is making an out of sign sextile to Saturn. And that means that there are opportunities, but they're not the most obvious. And so maybe you're trying to work out a way to make money out of the home, and you are blocked from renting out a room, or you can't Airbnb your place, or there is space limitations, and so you can't have the type of business that you're thinking of. But there is a solution there, and you have to think outside the box. And so you might want to either shift the questions to be, what else can I do, and start to make lists of all possibilities, no matter how wild and crazy they are. Or maybe it is to put some sort of other constraint on it, which can really fire up creativity, which is to say, if you needed to make an X amount of dollars out of your home in the next 4 weeks, how would you do it? Like that energy of putting the time pressure on sometimes helps. Sometimes it doesn't, but sometimes it does. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from Pluto, of course, in that house of home and family. And so that's why I focused on that a moment ago. And its co-ruler, Mars, which is that power pair in your house of relationships, partnerships, mentors, collaborators, etc. So this says the more people you meet, the more money you can make. And because it's with Jupiter, that expands it. So that means that you're not only have this opportunity to meet a lot of people, but people who are quite important or elevated in some way. So that is to go out and really make sure that you are connecting with people in a deep and meaningful way. That's not spamming people. It's not just, and this is something where the hard work has to come in. And that is, like, you can blanket people with the same message and you get very little response. But if you tailor a message to people and show that you're interested in their situation, you could get a much higher rate of response. And yes, I get it. It's really hard to do because it's very time consuming. So you kind of have to weigh what it is, to get the less response from the blanketing, but it's more automated, or that one-on-one connection, which this 7th house energy seems to suggest. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, the house is amazing because Venus is there along with Uranus, North Node, and that Mercury retrograde is back in that house. So this can mean that somebody who wasn't paying you before is now paying you, or an investment that was really languishing is now on the move. So this is an out of sign square. So this means that some action is required. And again, with that out of sign, it's not the most obvious of actions to take. And so sometimes if you have found in the past that, trying to buy your way into something or out of something was the way you did it, maybe you need to sit down and think of who you could meet, who could pay for this rather than yourself. How can you find maybe a group or an organization to help you? So thinking of different ways, and a lot of this is focused externally. And so that means that other people are going to be involved. Now, when it comes to money from your career, which is like a paycheck, the sun is not making an aspect to Pluto. However, it is making, hold on, I had to check. And then I couldn't find it. And the sun's making a sextile to Mars. And so Mars is in the 7th house. And so this is about reaching out to your boss, supervisor, etc., and sitting down and having that conversation. And that is that you need to initiate it, because the sextile indicates that if you take the action, then something good happens. It means that they're not going to come to you and suggest anything, or even if they did, it's not exactly what you're looking for. So you want to initiate this action, and then you could get good results. Okay, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're time sensitive or highly leveraged. Pluto is not making an aspect to Uranus. However, the co-ruler Mars is making an aspect, and that's a semi-sextile. And so the semi-sextile is that one that we were talking about at length before, about the little rock in your shoe. And so you need to work on those details to get this thing to happen. And that is maybe sitting down and reading a contract, maybe discussing with someone, perhaps an attorney, about the ins and outs of a contract, or getting the details done on your big project. Sometimes the writing of the novel is, that's the bulk of it, but you still have to pick out the cover and do the forward and the end pages and all of those little details, or maybe build the web page to put the novel on there. All of these sort of things, those are the things that need to happen. Okay, Scorpio, you guys are doing this new moon in your area of resources, investments, money from your business, as well as intimacy in relationships and a really strong connection. So there is some sort of new beginning going on, maybe in your relationships, maybe in your business, maybe you're starting a business or starting new types of investments. And by new types of investments, I mean new to you, not new to the world, because this is more the house of traditional investments. So something that, maybe not your grandfather would recognize, but at least your father would recognize. So where you are being challenged is that Saturn square Mercury, which says that maybe your friends and family are not so supportive of what you're doing. Maybe they are scared for you. Maybe they are just experiencing fears themselves, and so they're voicing those and telling you not to move forward. So, and it can be very frustrating when the people that you love and trust don't seem to trust you. So, and we don't want to try to, control them and control all external circumstances, because that, for the most part, is super time consuming and can stop you from doing a lot of things. So here comes the power pair, Jupiter and Mars, in your house of work and daily routines, your 6th house, to remedy the situation. And that is, as you put in the practice, as you put in the time to hone your skills and get better at things, you will find that you turn the tide and people start to believe in you. And I think that everyone who's in a profession, who has worked at something has found this to be true, that, and for your, having your own business, this works as well. Like at first, when you break out of that regular path, the path that everybody takes, people around you who care about you can react in a negative way. But when they see that you are devoted to something, that you are improving on something, and of course, as you get better at it, you exude more confidence, you will attract more clients, customers, etc. So opportunities in general, so all of that. So that's the solution, is to put in the work. And I get it, that's not an overnight solution, but it is something to focus on over this next 2 weeks to establish some sort of routine. Now, when it comes to a relationship, specifically new love, of course, Pluto is making a nice sextile to Neptune. You always get opportunities for new love. And that is because this is an extremely long aspect. And so what happens, what shifts and changes, is sometimes you'll have a great house of relationships, which, by the way, you are, which is that Venus is there, Uranus, North Node, which is your life path, and that Mercury retrograde has gone back in. If you've been thinking about getting with somebody for a new relationship, this is a great time. And then when it comes to existing love relationships, Venus is making an out of sign square with that Pluto. And that means that while you might have some contentious periods, you are definitely coming together with opportunities to really connect. Now, this is an out of sign square, therefore the ways you're connecting may not be in the most obvious way. So it may not just be instant intimacy, but maybe a discussion about what each of you want in this relationship in that department. Or maybe this is that you are doing something that you both don't do, you're new to it, and so you're finding a way to come together because you are sharing an experience that you're both kind of, struggling with or finding novel and fun. Now, when it comes to home and family, while Pluto is not making an aspect to Uranus, the co-ruler, your co-ruler, Mars, is making a semi-square to Uranus. So, which you might say, wow, that's not any better. But yeah, it's a challenging aspect in the sense that there can be some contention, people rubbing each other the wrong way. And this may be related to doing things at home together, because you do have a very active house of daily routines, and that would include things like housekeeping. And so it's possible that you're needing to declutter the house or get some sort of spring cleaning done, maybe ahead of the summer vacation or something. Maybe you're just making space for kids coming home from college, but there's a little bit of contention going on at home. And it's possible you're just trying to adjust, maybe having more people in the house. So you do want to tread carefully during this period. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Jupiter, which is part of the power pair with Mars. That means that you think it and then you can do it. You can take such direct action during this time and get so much done. And some of this is about getting yourself on a schedule or finding the deadlines to do things, or, like what's the next step, and breaking everything down into the small steps so you can just go through really quickly. So there is something here connected so nicely to work and routines that you can make a lot of progress and therefore make money. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your own business, the new moon is there, and so that does indicate that there is something new happening in this area, which we mentioned before. But also Mercury is making an out of sign sextile with Jupiter, which is an opportunity. It's just not the most obvious opportunity, and so something's there, there's some profits there, but you may have to think a little outside the box or be creative a little bit and then take an action, and then opportunities will roll around with some profits. Now, when it comes to money derived from your career, which is like a paycheck, again, you're doing that energy of the Mercury making an out of sign sextile with Jupiter. Now we need to consider, though, that Jupiter's in your house of work and Mercury is retrograde. So this is likely that you have broached this subject with your boss before, and this is a second time that you are trying to sit this person down and say, I need a raise. Now, there could be something where they had suggested in the past that you do certain things, and so maybe you have accomplished those things, or maybe you are saying, you've told me I need to do certain things, but I need maybe more help to do that, or I need more guidance to get this done. So this is a time to continue a conversation you've had about your moving up in the company. So while you are doing this residual Mercury energy, and I meant Mercury retrograde energy. And so that because Mercury will go direct on the 3rd, it's not necessary for you immediately to do this because Mercury will be traveling through its shadow for a few weeks. So you have probably this whole 2 weeks to sit down with your boss, but try and do it sooner rather than later. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. Jupiter is now moved too far, and it's no longer making that conjunction with Neptune. However, it will be back later this year. So right now, this is more of a continuing the process, buy and hold, or just kind of, cool your heels. Don't take a lot of action right now because right now the energy is not lining up to give you profits. Okay, Sagittarius, you guys are doing this new moon energy in your house of relationships, which means that there are new people to meet, new people who want to connect with you, who could be beneficial in many different areas of your life. And so you do want to try to, connect with people, whether that's online or in person. Now, where Saturn square Mercury is holding you back is one in the area of communication, where you might be doing a lot of negative self-talk. You might be talking yourself out of social events or other opportunities to meet someone. You might be thinking very negative thoughts, and it would be very good to turn that around. Additionally, that is also affecting your habits, because if you are in a negative loop, then you are less likely to take care of yourself physically, and so that Mercury retrograde could mean you're falling back into some bad habits. And so it's something where if you can stick to a good habit during Mercury retrograde, then even if you get challenged in the future when Mercury goes retrograde again, you will go back to that good habit. So it's really important during Mercury retrograde periods to stick on that straight and narrow. And where we see the power pair of Jupiter and Mars coming together is in your house of pleasure, fun, creativity, also new love. So we'll talk about that in a second. But it says go do some fun things and, enjoy yourself, find some peace and joy, look at beautiful things, look at art, listen to music, or create some art and make your own music, because that is the thing that pulls you out of this negative thinking. It puts you in a better space in general. So that's your key to success this time. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, of course, we are looking for that Mars-Jupiter connection, and they are in a conjunction in that house of new love. And so this is really one of the best aspects you've had in a long time. If you want to go out and meet someone new, now is the time. So, have friends and family help you out, maybe help you with your online profile or introduce you to someone. By the way, your house of relationships, which I'm going to talk about more in a second, has the new moon. So this really says something new is happening when it comes to love. So get out of the house and meet someone, have a first date, have a second date, etc. Now, when it comes to existing relationships, as I just said, it's the new moon. And so this says that even in your existing relationship, something new is happening. Also, Mercury is making an out of sign sextile with Jupiter. And so this is think out of the box, do something a little different, surprise your beloved with, flowers, or make them dinner, or go off to a different restaurant, or go dancing if you never go dancing, or go to the theater instead of going to a movie. Do something different and bring some newness and excitement to the relationship. It'll go great. Now, when it comes to home and family, there is no aspect going on between Jupiter and Neptune right now. These two will line up in the future, but this means that some of the things that you were working on at home are now on hold. And maybe that is maybe kids are coming back home from school, and so renovation projects are stopping, or maybe you are going to wait for a few months now because of the changing interest rates on whether to sell your house or buy a new house. So everything's a little bit on hold right now, and that's okay because you have other things that you can be working on. And if nothing else, go through, do some decluttering. That always helps kind of lighten the load at home. When it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Saturn, which is making that square to that retrograde Mercury. So that means that you need to look at what you've done in the past and pull energy from there. So that might be existing customers might bring you new customers, or they may come back to buy again. A source of money that owes you money now could start paying, or that if you were working on some projects in the past, it's time to revamp those, maybe redo them, relaunch them, refresh them in some sort of way. It's all the RE words, like I said, redoing, revamping, etc. That's what you want to do. Even though Mercury goes direct on June 3rd, it's still going to be in shadow for a little while. So you have that energy to pull things from your past for this whole 2-week period. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your business, the moon's not making an aspect to Saturn, and so this is you working as usual in the business. You have a very strong house of work this time, and so this is you working on the business rather than just sailing through. It does mean you're making about the same as usual, but it's challenging right now to make additional. So if you're going after some big clients and all that, expect them to buy outside of this 2-week period. Don't try to rush it. Now, when it comes to money derived from career, Venus is making an out-of-sign sextile with that Saturn. And so that means that you're going to have to think a little bit out of the box to get any sort of additional money. But it is possible because it's a sextile, and that's nice. Now, Venus is in your house of work, and so this would probably be connected to doing some new hours, additional hours, finding a way to lead a project, or making some suggestions to streamline and increase productivity. So a lot of the possibilities of a raise are predicated on you doing something more at the job because that Venus is now in the 6th house. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. You are going to feel very enthusiastic about doing something because Mars and Jupiter are in that house, but unfortunately Mars is not making an aspect to Saturn. And so you are wanting to take massive action and really focus on building something and creating something, and you don't want to wait anymore. However, the actual profits are not reaching your bank account. So if you're going to be taking massive action, do it to build the infrastructure, or to go through the contracts, or to write as much of the album or the screenplay as you possibly can. But the actual launch of everything is not really advised because things are not lining up at the moment. So this is the time to test. This is a time to work at it. This is a time to fine tune, and the profits can come later. Okay, Capricorn, you guys are doing this new moon in your house of work, health, and daily routines. And so this is where you can experience some new beginning. And this is also where you want to start something new. And so maybe a new habit, maybe you are starting a new job, or perhaps you are just, found a new exercise to do, or something new you want to do for your health. Now, where you are finding that block or that obstacle is that Saturn square Mercury retrograde. And so where that's happening is that it feels like maybe you don't have the resources right now to do the things that you want to do, that money is tight, or that your money is going towards obligations that you have and you want to put it into something else that maybe you would find more enjoyable or better for your health, etc. So that's where you're kind of fighting against balance. And where we see that power pair of Jupiter and Mars helping you out is in the area of home, family, and foundations. And so this does say that maybe there is some support you can get from your family. Maybe it's not exactly material support. Maybe it's just some help with things, or somebody has a piece of exercise equipment they can give you. There might be something also in the very foundations, and that is, stretching back from your ancestors' time. Like, what is it that maybe they did in a situation, or maybe just pulling in some help, through prayer or meditation to get some help from the energy of the family itself. There's also possibly something going on in the home itself that can help you out. So look at that as a resource. All right, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, you have an amazing house going on with Venus, Uranus, North Node, and that Mercury retrograde. Now, the Mercury retrograde could mean that you are meeting somebody that you have met before, and so I don't know if that would count as new love. Maybe they were just a friend before, and now they are a new relationship potential. Now, when it comes to that aspect, you are doing a Venus in... When it comes to... It's really struggling today, and there's a lot of noise outside, which I'm trying to block out. So when it comes to the aspect, it is Venus making an out of sign sextile with Saturn. And so a sextile is lovely. It just means you need to initiate some sort of action, but the fact that it's out of sign means that you have to do something you haven't done before. And so maybe you hate doing online dating, but now is the time to try it. Maybe you don't want to do a blind date, but yes, now is the time to try it. Or saying yes to someone who doesn't seem to be your type, but getting to know that person because you like their personality, or you like their smile, or something about them. And so, maybe that you're going into it thinking there's a friendship here that could happen, and then love blossoms. So this is that out of sign sextile where you take an action, but take an action that you don't normally do. Now, when it comes to committed relationships, Saturn is not making an aspect with the moon. And so it's just like you guys are busy, you're doing different things, and you're not really coming together maybe on the same page as usual. I'm not seeing contentious energy. I'm just not seeing any energy at all. And so it's possible that maybe you are in different locations right now for some reason, or you're just super busy, and so you're seeing each other, just in the morning and then maybe very late at night, and not really getting together the rest of the time. And so this energy will line up in the future, but right now it's just like two ships going two different directions. And then when it comes to home and family, again, Mars is not making an aspect with Saturn, and so you have a similar energy. Now, the interesting thing is that Mars is in that house of home and family, so there is a lot of activity going on. And so when we have that combination where there's not an aspect, but there is activity, that means that there potentially could be some disharmonious energy, and so you do want to walk a little softly. So sorry about all the noise out there. Some days it's just hard to film. There's Jupiter there also, and so this means that sometimes things can get blown out of proportion. So do be careful if you are trying to introduce some concepts that might upset people or are controversial, or that will push somebody's buttons, because definitely some buttons could get pushed. And then, this energy will line up in the future. So if you have something that you need to tell people, maybe just wait a little bit. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from that Uranus, which is in your house of creativity and fun, also risky investments, which we'll talk about in a second, and then Saturn, which is in a house of money. So even though, we talk about this every time, that Saturn has been going through your house of money all of this time, and Saturn is a slow growth wealth aspect, and so it can be very frustrating to see such little returns, etc. Saturn is getting ready to leave this house for you, and it won't be back for another 28 years. So this is an important time for you to really get a handle on handling your money. handling your handling of money. So this is, getting a budget together, being able to stick to it, finding a way to get money into brokerage accounts or into investments or, channeled into your business, to find a way to pay yourself first, to find a way to increase your income and decrease expenses. So Saturn, as I said, will be leaving this sign and this house for you in just a few months, less than a year. And so it's really important to kind of buckle down and really become what the Saturn's been trying to get you to do, which is to become a master of your money. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or money from your own business, the sun's not making an aspect to Uranus. And so therefore, right now, this is a time to work on the back office things. It's possible you have a new employee because you have the new moon in your house of work, and that also is for new employees or employees in general. And or maybe you just got into an investment and it's not time to take profits right now. So this is about working on the infrastructure. Mercury's retrograde, so go out and try to collect money from people who owe you money. That's a really good thing to do during a Mercury retrograde in Taurus. And look at ways to strengthen your position rather than looking for profits right now. Now, when it comes to money from a job, so money derived from your career, Pluto's not making an aspect to Uranus. However, Mars, the co-ruler of Scorpio, is making a semi-square to that Uranus, which rules your money. So there is some opportunity here, but I think because of the semi-square is not that great an aspect, it's going to mean giving up something. And so that the idea here is you'd have to say to yourself, you really do want to give up maybe working at home or give up some of your free time or something to get the additional money. So you may want to wait until this aspect lines up, at least to be more favorable. Now, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or they are time sensitive. You have a great house because it's Venus, Uranus, North Node, and that Mercury retrograde. And so the Mercury retrograde does kind of give us pause to say, don't rush into anything. Things are going to take longer than you expect, but it can bring back some opportunities from the past. Now, Venus is not making an aspect to Uranus yet, but it is on an approach to a conjunction. So we may see that come up next time we talk in 2 weeks. However, Venus is making an out of sign sextile to that Saturn, which is in a money house. So there is potential for profits here. Because Mercury is retrograde for the first couple of days, you may not want to launch a new album or your screenplay or something like that, not quite yet. You do want to wait until Mercury is direct at least. But I do believe that in this category, you're likely to make more money than usual over the next 2 weeks. Okay, Aquarius, you guys are doing this new moon in your area of fun things to do, romance, as well as risky investments, which we will talk about in a moment. So where we see you doing new things is in these areas. So if you can do new fun things that you haven't done before, you'll be surprised at how many opportunities this could open up for you. Additionally, though, we are looking at that Saturn square Mercury as being the obstacle. And right now that obstacle says that there may be something from childhood that you feel has been holding you back, or this might be some connection with family where maybe you're wanting to move forward, but they think what you're doing is too risky or is not in the family tradition. And this can really kind of chip away at your confidence. And so that's where the block is. And something to do is to just recognize that that is why you're procrastinating on some things. Sometimes we procrastinate masking the true reason for it, But then we think, oh yeah, this is just because I think I'm going to disappoint my grandma if I don't, go out with the person she wants me to go out with or something like that. And then you can kind of work your way through that. And specifically on the working your way through that, we see that Jupiter Mars power pair in your house of communication. And so, of course, an option would be to go to grandma and say, hey, I'm going to date whoever I want to date. But this is more about shifting an internal dialogue so that it is not taking from your confidence, so that you're not holding yourself back when you don't have to. And that is also in this area of finding joy, because that's where the new moon is. So this is, both that, love relationship idea, and also the risky investment idea, but also your creativity and where you find joy. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, you have the new moon there, and that's fantastic. On the other hand, Mercury's retrograde, and it's not making an aspect to Uranus. And so it's possible that you're so focused on someone from the past, or that someone from the past is coming back, and that is obscuring the view to somebody new. But you're maybe having new ideas and maybe launching yourself on a new dating platform, or maybe you found a matchmaker or something like that. But try to do the first date outside this 2-week period so that you can get some better energy, so that Mercury can be direct and moving forward. So because right now things are not lining up for a great connection, even though you have that new moon there that is saying that something new is very, very close. Now, when it comes to existing love relationships, the sun's not making an aspect with Uranus, and so there is a great deal of focus elsewhere. And so it's possible that you're just really busy, that you are currently in 2 different places, or you're both doing your own tasks, and so you are just kind of humming along. And so it's just, you're not getting much closer, but you're not pulling apart. So it's just you're just doing your lives and kind of side by side, but not so much interacting. Now, when it comes to home and family, it's very interesting, because Venus is not making an aspect to Uranus, but it will very, very soon. So Venus is on approach to making a conjunction with that Uranus. It's just going to happen outside this 2-week period. So a lot of activity could be going on, but nothing's definitive yet. And so you might be preparing to sell your house, but you're not putting it on the market yet, which is wise because Mercury is retrograde. So, but also, maybe somebody's moving in, and, so you're doing some of the stuff to welcome them, but they're not there yet. Or maybe they come in, drop their stuff, and then go on some sort of vacation. I know a lot of parents are going through that. And so they don't really have the child at home yet. And so this also does mean some delays when you're getting renovations done. It's going to take a little bit of patience. I'm not seeing so much contentious energy, just energy that's not quite happening or following through at this time. Now, when it comes to your money, you're pulling money from that Neptune, as well as the co-ruler Jupiter, which is conjunct the Mars, our power pair. And that is in your house of communication. And so the first thing, of course, is notice the quality of questions that you ask yourself, because that can change your financial picture faster than probably anything else. Because if you are saying to yourself, the question is, what can I buy, or how can I get a good price on this, versus how can I make an extra $1,000 this week, you can see how your attention and your super brain is working on a different question entirely. And so therefore you're going to get different answers. And we don't have to think so much about buying stuff, because it is super, super easy to buy stuff. It is more important to think about, how to bring in more money, how to handle the money that you have better, how to find good investments, and then also how to have confidence in yourself, how to believe in yourself. So this Jupiter in your 3rd house right now, in your house of communication, now conjunct Mars, is giving you the perfect opportunity to work on this. Now, when it comes to traditional investments as well as money from your business, Mercury is making a lovely sextile to that Neptune. And so therefore, if you take some sort of action, you can get some really good results. And so that is, go out and investigate new investments, see if there's some place to put your money, definitely work on your business, expand your territory, launch a new product right after that Mercury goes direct on June 3rd, at least wait a few days after that until Mercury gets up to speed. But in this 2-week period, you can find a good time to move forward on an investment, or on a launch for your business. Now, when it comes to money derived from your career, that is a paycheck, Mercury is making an out of sign sextile to Jupiter. So it's the same aspect, a nice aspect, but it's out of sign, which means it's not going to be so obvious. And that is that you might get the perk instead of the money. And that could be more flexible schedule, more vacation time, discounts on insurance or something like that. And it adds up to the raise that you'd want to get, but it's not the actual cash. Or you may be discussing with your supervisor how you can make more money in a different way with them, and maybe that is to take on a different shift or to work some sort of different hours where you can actually pull in more hours when you have less commute time. So be creative and you'll have an opportunity to make more money. And then finally, when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. This is where the new moon is. And so there is some new opportunity coming to you. Now, it is also ruled by that Mercury that is retrograde. And so that means that this new opportunity is something that has either been offered you before or you have run into it before and maybe you passed on it. And, it could be something that you have seen over and over again. And finally, there's just this little light bulb moment that you say, oh, you know what? I'm going to look into this further. And so that's where that new energy comes in. Now, Mercury is making a sextile to Neptune, so if you take some action, there is an opportunity to get some sort of benefit. So it is okay to move forward on this. It's likely you're going to make more money than usual in this area. It is just a sextile, so it's not like, like a huge win, but it could be something quite nice and beneficial for you if you move forward in this area. Okay, Pisces, you guys are doing this new moon in your area of home, family, and foundations, and so something new could be happening there. And this could be, doing some renovations, maybe you are moving, and this would be something where you are very happy about moving. So this, I'm not saying that, you're suddenly forced out. So, or some sort of changes are happening at home. Maybe some kids are coming back from college. And so maybe people are coming to visit. So there's some positive energy happening and something that's happening that seems new. Now, where you're feeling blocked is in your area of unnamed fears and also escapism. So the unnamed fears is this idea of, watching the media, thinking, getting so focused on inflation or so focused on potential recession or, climate change, which is a very real thing, or, that some disaster is about to happen, and having that thing in the future be the thing that you're so much thinking about that you're missing out on the present. And this is, of course, because of the Saturn square that Mercury retrograde in your house of communication. So this is a lot about how you communicate with yourself. Now, the other side of that 12th house experience with the Saturn is escapism, where instead of doing the things that you know that you should do or that you really want to do, you just get caught up in scrolling or streaming or playing video games, and the time just goes by. And so that is getting caught up in something you might be addicted to or some sort of escape. So therefore, you're not thinking about, again, the things you could be doing that could bring you, joy, better relationships, more money, etc. So that's where the struggle is. Now, where your power pair is, that Jupiter conjunct Mars, it's in your house of money. So that is, if you focus on how you can bring in more money, how you can handle your money better, then a lot of that negative energy can disappear. And, that makes some sense. If you're worried about inflation, then by focusing on making more money, reducing expenses, shoring up your financial position, then things can feel better. Yes, there are definitely prices rising, but perhaps they're rising in areas of stuff you don't need. And so looking maybe at where you can barter things, or where you can convert your cash into something that is useful that you're going to use over a long period of time. So the Jupiter Mars, that's your power pair right there in your house of money. So that does bode well. We'll talk more about that in a second. Now, when it comes to relationships, specifically new love, the moon's not making an aspect with Neptune this time. So it feels like the focus right now should be on you. And so that is if somebody is pursuing you and wanting to go out with you. Of course, you could do that, although I wouldn't recommend a first date during Mercury retrograde. Try to do that outside the retrograde period after June 3rd. But what I think would be good is to focus on yourself and caring for yourself and getting more confident and stronger within yourself. And then you're going to attract love opportunities, friendship opportunities, business opportunities, etc., all of those types of opportunities. And then you'll be, outside this 2-week period. Now, when it comes to existing relationships, it's a whole different story because Mercury's making a sextile to Neptune, and it's a lovely aspect. And it says, if you're willing to take a step forward, you'll be dancing soon. So it's very good for bringing in positive energy in a lot of different areas. Going back to existing love relationship, I feel like your communication could be good. You could find a lot of common ground. You could even do some healing of some past issues, but you have to take the first action or first step. Now, when it comes to home and family, of course, you have that new moon energy there. That's lovely. Mercury's making a sextile to the Neptune. So it does feel like good things are happening. There's a lot of activity in your area of neighbors and siblings. So something might be going on there. Maybe it's a neighborhood party or a garage sale. Maybe you have some siblings visiting or cousins or, that's third house can be also relatives who are around the same age as you are, whether they're second cousins, once removed or whatever. So there is some positive energy there. Again, you initiate it because as a sextile, you initiate the action and then something good follows. Now, when it comes to your money, you are pulling money from the power pair, Jupiter and Mars, in your house of money. This is an excellent time to pursue money opportunities. Now, for the first few days while Mercury is retrograde, stick to those opportunities you have already started and get as much work done on those as possible. And then as Mercury goes direct, go pursue new things and, explore new ideas. But this is a time where you have the planet of luck and the planet of action together helping you with money. It's very rare to have these two together. You only get these maybe every, I'm going to say like 2.25 years or so, maybe 2.1 years. So, and they don't often fall in your house of money. That one's super rare. So grab hold of this opportunity because this is a great time to work on things that could bring you money. Now, when it comes to traditional investments or from money from your own business, Venus is making a semi-sextile to that Mars, and so that means handle the details. Look at the small things, tweak your website, make sure that things on the website are very customer-oriented and that you're giving them solutions rather than just saying that you know what you're doing and that you're trying to convince them, that you're the person to see. Don't bother with that. Bother with, how what you do can benefit them and solve their problems, etc. And so, or when you're looking at investments, what can you tweak? What needs to be rebalanced in your portfolio? Where could you diversify? Or where do you want to focus your energies, etc. Now, when it comes to money derived from your career, which would be a paycheck, it is a different story because Mars is not making an aspect to Saturn. So, there may be talk of of giving you a raise, but it's going to happen outside the 2-week period. Bonuses, higher commissions, all of these things happen outside the 2-week period. So unless you already have a meeting set with your boss that is a regular meeting, like your annual review or something like that, it would be best to talk to your supervisor about more money from your job outside this 2-week period. And then when it comes to risky investments, and these are the things that take a lot of time, energy, or money to get going, they're highly leveraged or time sensitive. Mars is making a sextile to that moon. And so you have an opportunity to make more money from something that it falls in this category, whether that is something where you are placing a bet because it is a very risky investment, or you're doing something on spec and then hope to make a big paycheck later. And oftentimes that's like doing a proposal, or, trying to start a business, or, writing a screenplay or something like that. So of course you don't want to launch during Mercury retrograde, but Mercury will go direct during this 2-week period. And so then you can start to pick out the date where you launch your big project. Of course, risky investments are inherently risky, so don't take a sextile, especially, as a license to just plow forward. Sextile is not, it's a good aspect, but it's not the best aspect. And of course, risky investments would be determined by what's in your personal chart, because this is just a general reading. So, be aware that risky investments are risky. So be cautious, of course, but you do have some good energy during this 2-week period. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe and stay tuned, because LaRue wants to say hi.